Have you ever felt like you're just constantly on edge? Like your internal alarm system is stuck in the on position, and you can't find the switch. Well, if that sounds familiar, you are so in the right place. Let's dive in, because what you're experiencing, it might not be what you think. And honestly, understanding it could change everything. Just think about it for a second. When you walk into our room, any room, do you just walk in, or are you immediately, almost unconsciously, scanning everything? You're reading faces, you're checking people's posture, you're listening to the tone of the conversation. You're basically taking the emotional temperature of the space before you even take your coat off. And I bet some of these signs hit close to home, right? That spidey sense you have when a conversation's energy just dips and you're the first one to feel it, or that deep down exhaustion that comes from your brain running nonstop threat assessments. Now, it's really easy for us and for others to just slap a label on this and call it anxiety. But there's a much more precise and frankly more empowering explanation we need to get into. Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it. We have to draw a really clear line in the sand here, because we tend to throw around two very different terms as if they're the same thing: anxiety and this state of intense watchfulness. So what's really interesting about this is that the key difference is all about time. You see, anxiety a lot of the time lives in the future. It's spinning out these what-if scenarios that haven't happened and might never happen. Hypervigilance, though, that's locked into the present moment. It isn't imagining a threat. It's actively scanning for one right here, right now, using real-time sensory data, a shift in someone's tone, the way they cross their arms, you name it. So it's time to give this thing its proper name. What we're really talking about here is hypervigilance. Think of it as your brain's internal threat detection system, but it's been turned up to 11. So let's break that down. A state of enhanced sensory sensitivity. This is so important. It means you're not just making things up in your head. Your senses are genuinely physically heightened. They're constantly scanning your environment, looking for anything that might be a potential danger so you can react. And that connects right back to that feeling we talked about at the start of always being on. But okay, where does this even come from? Why would the brain do this? Well, it's definitely not random. It's actually a learned adaptation. It's a rewiring that happens for one of the most important reasons imaginable: survival. For so many people, this rewiring process starts way back. See, when a child grows up in an environment that feels unsafe or maybe just really unpredictable emotionally, their brain does something pretty incredible to cope. It adapts. It learns that to stay safe, it has to be aware of everything all the time. And this brilliantly illustrates how that process unfolds. So first, you have an environment that makes the brain feel like it has to be on guard. Step 2, the brain adapts. It literally rewires itself, beefing up those threat detection functions. And then, step 3, and this is the part that explains so much, that heightened state of alert becomes the new default setting. It's not a choice anymore. It becomes this automatic, unconscious process that just keeps running in the background, long into adulthood. Okay, and this right here brings us to what might be the single most important idea in this whole explainer. We have got to completely reframe how we see this trait. It's time to stop looking at it as some kind of personal failing or a broken part of you. Just let that sink in for a minute. Read it again. This isn't a flaw in your personality. It's a highly specialized, incredibly effective survival skill that your brain developed to protect you. A skill that, for one reason or another, just never got the memo that it could finally power down. So the next time you feel that wave of exhaustion from being on high alert, just try to remember this. Your brain wasn't malfunctioning. It wasn't broken. It was doing its job perfectly. It was trying to keep you safe in the absolute best way it knew how. But that brings up a really good question, right? If the danger's gone, why is the watch still going? Why does this skill stay switched on for years or even decades after it's not needed anymore? Here's the best analogy I've ever heard for this. Think of your mind as a smoke detector. Now, if that smoke detector was in a house that actually caught on fire, what would you do? You'd crank its sensitivity setting all the way up to maximum, right? Well, that's exactly what your brain did. The problem is, it's now so sensitive that the alarm goes off at the tiniest hint of smoke, even when you're just making toast. The original fire is long gone, but that high sensitivity setting is still active. So, the crucial point is this. Let's bring it all home. First, what you're feeling is real. It's a physiological response, not just all in your head. Second, it started out as a brilliant survival skill. Third, and say it with me, it is not a character flaw. And finally, just understanding where it came from, seeing it for what it is, an adaptation and not a defect, that is the most powerful first step you can possibly take toward learning how to recalibrate that inner smoke detector. So I'm going to leave you with one final thought to carry with you. If you start to see this part of yourself not as a burden, but as actual evidence of your own strength and your own resilience, if you see it as a skill you learned to survive, what does that change for you starting today?